What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to Show and Tech. So the iPhone 12 mini dropped early November 2020 with a price tag of $699 USD. Now, it was arguably the most intriguing of the four phones that Apple dropped this year because it created a certain mystique with this miniature size. So we saw that this year they brought back the iPhone SE as sort of a response to all the people that were asking for a smaller, more palmable iPhone as the sizes are starting to get out of control. Now, I've been using the 12 mini since launch day and I've had an incredible experience while using this phone, but unfortunately it does have a couple of trade-offs that you're going to want to consider if you're in the market for buying this guy right here. So without wasting any more time, let's jump into the review of the iPhone 12 mini. So the iPhone 12 mini is 5.1 inches tall by 2.53 inches wide. It's very light, coming in at 133 grams. And one of my favorite changes is that the iPhone 12 mini features a 5.4 inch all screen OLED display, so there's no more top and bottom bezel like we saw with the iPhone SE. Not only that, but it features Apple's newest A14 Bionic chip, which is supposed to be a powerhouse, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as I've seen some things that don't have me totally convinced. As far as the cameras go, it's a similar camera module as the iPhone 11 series. So you've got a dual 12 megapixel camera system on the back featuring an ultra wide and wide camera with all the bells and whistles that we've come to expect in a smartphone camera as far as portrait modes and improved low light photography goes. One really cool thing to mention is this year's HDR Dolby Vision capabilities up to 30 frames per second and 4K videos at 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. So if you're thinking about using this little guy to make content, then it'll serve you extremely well. And so coming in at 5.4 inches, the display size sounds almost comically small when you compare it to the other phones that exist on the market right now. So these days we've got phones that go as large as 6.8 inches if we're talking about the Note series, or even this guy's big brother, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, has a 6.7 inch screen. So that makes this one seem almost like a joke. The small screen size actually lends itself to being not only very efficient to use, but I think appeals to a much larger audience. The screen is able to get plenty bright, the text is sharp, and streaming videos is extremely comfortable. Now, probably the most concerning thing when it comes to the iPhone 12 mini has always been its battery. So we know that by having such a small form factor, obviously then you're gonna have to try to fit a much smaller battery into this chassis. So battery life has probably been the most concerning aspect of this phone. It's been a point of contention whenever people discuss whether this phone would actually be useful or not and how many people would consider buying it. So obviously with its small form factor, you're not going to be able to put as large a battery as you would in the 12 or the 12 Pro Max. And as such, you would expect that the battery life on this is substantially worse than its counterparts. Now, I would personally consider myself not to be a quote unquote power user, as the things that I do are pretty moderate. So I like to browse social media, I like to read articles. I do play a lot of mobile games. And so for me, having 4 to 5 hours of screen on time is no problem. But you should put an asterisk beside that 4 to 5 hours because of the fact that I do spend so much time playing video games, and yet I've never had an issue with this phone not being able to last me for an entire day. So that being said, I've been away from home with this phone for upwards of 15 hours and still have made it home with 15 to 20% charge left on the battery. Now, what I found interesting though is how the screen size and overall form factor have an impact on how you actually go about using the phone on a day-to-day basis. But I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the review. But one thing that I will say though is that if your only gripe with buying this phone and saving yourself some money is that you're worried about the battery, consider picking up one of the slim portable chargers that you can grab off of Amazon from various companies. There's Aukey, you have Anchor. I mean, the possibilities are endless. In my opinion, the amount of real estate that having a charger would take up while carrying this on your person as well would probably be the same as having a phone as large as this in your backpack. Now, I know somebody out there is gonna say, why should I buy a phone and then have to buy a battery separately versus just going out and buying a larger phone with a larger battery? Well, if you compare the price of this phone here, the iPhone 12 mini, to the Pro Max, which would have the best battery, it's a lot easier to spend the $699 here and pick up a $30 portable charger versus having to pay crazy amounts of money for a much bigger and more cumbersome device, or at least that's the way that I see it. The cameras on this phone are excellent, whether you're using them for spot photography or taking videos while you're on the go with the family. There really isn't much by way of negatives. I had actually purchased the 12 Pro initially and used it for a week before deciding on going with the Mini. And in all honesty, I don't see a difference between the two. And I can't justify paying more money for a telephoto lens and LiDAR scanner for improved low light autofocus, because at the end of the day, the majority of the time when you're using your cell phone camera, you are going to be in good lighting. It is going to be daytime. And if the telephoto lens is that important to you, I mean, taking 2 steps forward would create that same telephoto effect anyways. So are you really getting that much more by paying extra for the 12 Pro when all of the features are the exact same? Probably not. So going back to my A14 Bionic comment from earlier, yes, the A14 Bionic is a powerhouse in terms of efficiency and making sure that when you take photos with the iPhone, they get processed and come out looking as fantastic as they do. But I was expecting a little bit more in terms of the overall performance as it pertains to playing mobile games on my phone. So I'm someone that plays a ton of Clash Royale. That's probably my primary mobile game at this point. And I noticed that for some reason, Clash Royale, which really isn't that intensive of a game graphically, tends to skip and jump at certain points while I'm playing it. Now that's something that I've never seen on my Note device. I've never seen it on any other device that I've played Clash Royale on. But for some reason, in specific moments, the iPhone 12 mini starts to struggle and drop frames while I'm playing that game. And I know this doesn't have to do so much with the A14 Bionic, but more so with the amount of RAM that is provided in the iPhone 12 mini, is that you'll notice when you have a number of apps open and you go into the carousel of apps so that you can switch to apps that you've opened in the past, it does take a second to have to actually reboot those apps from the very beginning because it doesn't keep them running in the background. Now, I don't know if that is a memory issue so much as it is a way to continue to conserve the amount of battery that is in the iPhone 12 mini. And personally, it doesn't bother me having to wait the extra 2 seconds for an app to reopen. You're not really saving that much time at the end of the day, but I know there's gonna be people out there who, when they see that, they're not gonna be impressed with the phone. So I just wanted to highlight that for you guys. And then finally, to elaborate how the form factor and the screen size sort of changes the way that the phone gets used. I don't know if it's just me personally, but by having a phone that has a smaller screen and this form factor, I find maybe because there's less information on the screen at a time, or maybe subconsciously I'm thinking about trying to stretch the battery out as much as possible. I found that my overall screen on time and my amount of time spent on social media and scrolling through Twitter and all of those things has been drastically reduced. So if you're someone who's trying to disconnect and kind of take a step back away from technology, take a step back from always being on your phone, then maybe taking a shot at a smaller compact phone like this one would do well to start those steps for you. Although technically, I guess I put the mini down and kind of pick up my iPad to read articles, but that's neither here nor there. So either way, that's pretty much it. The iPhone 12 mini has been an amazing phone to use and continues to convince me that big screens aren't all they're cracked up to be. At least when there are compact phones out there that offer more or less the same features at a much cheaper cost. So that's been it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, hit the thumbs. If you want to come back, hit the sub. Either way, much love as always. Throwing up 2 of them, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.